Lagi Geshe Yebe Sonam Ge Dola Benje Sanje Doba Sho Ye Jadan Zoje Sonam La Jansho Bado Dani Gyabzo Je Dagi Jinzo Yebe Sonam Ge Dola Benje Sanje Doba Sho Tamje dewa dan dewe gyodan dembara gyoje semje tamje donga dan donga ye gyodan dawara gyo semje tamje donga mebe dewa dan mendawa gyoje semje tamje yere chala nyedan dawe dan nyonda nebara gyora je Semje damje dewa dan deve gyodan dembara gyoje semje damje dunga dan dunga ye gyodan dawara gyoje semje damje dunga mebe dewa dan mendawara gyoje semje damje nyere chada nyedan dove dan nyola nebara gyora gyoje semje damje dewa dan deve gyodan dembara gyoje semje damje dunga dan dunga ge gyodan dawara gyoje semje damje dunga mebe dewa dan mendawara gyoje semje damje nyere chada nyedan dove dan nyola nebara gyora kange tenje dewa junga wa meba ge meba cheba meba da meba owa meba do meba da de min de ji ni de ba ye je je de ba do be san ye murna tamba de la cha ze lo Nian de xiwa zhen na ma gu jie ni ge ni jie zhe ze fan yin dan zhe la bian ba ra jie na lam jie ni ge jie dian zhen du ze ba gang gang da yang da den be du na nam ba gun de na zo de zong ba nian de zhang jiu zhen be so jie san jie ji ni yong de la cha ze lo bo be zhe wa na ze jie sa jie ya jie gong a wa gun do zhang be ye ze da gun ne to la cha ze lu ta ye pe je chu je me do zhang ma re ra ni xie ni de jian ba de san jie xin do me de gu wa ye zhu ge nam da xin la jue ba ra xiu yi ta ma gu ru zhen na me da la tam ni ya da ya bi 这不是这切从是切从。我写的，这什么的？刚才，都已经确决的。Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit of all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of vice, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of vice, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness, the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings not be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of vice, attachment, and anger. independent origination. There is no ceasing, no arising, no annihilation, no permanence, no coming, no going, no separateness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the consummate Buddha, the supreme among all teachers, the one who taught this peace, which is free of elaborations. I prostrate to the sublime Mother of Buddhas and of the assembly of the hearers and bodhisattvas, who through the noble obeisance leads hearers seeking pacification to complete peace, who through the noble of the paths causes those benefiting migrators to achieve the aims of the world, and who through possession of the exalted noble, the secular set forth the varieties having all aspects. The one who has eliminated the web of conceptualizations and is endowed with the divine bodies of the vast and profound, who eternally shines forth the forever noble light. To you, Buddha, I make prostrations. This ground spread with incense that's adorned with strewn flowers, Mount Meru, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land, and by offering it to you, may all living beings enjoy this pure land. Thus, meeting the teaching of the fearless teacher is due to the spiritual mentor's kindness. I dedicate this virtue for all living beings to be therefore by excellent spiritual friends. Vedam Guru Daya.
야, 다들인 나중에 숨쉬어 들어. 인도라 다 나중에 숨쉬어도 나중에 숨지 친이 이해와. 지네 섭진이 저러지래샤. 다 친이 가르쳐 그러잖아. 랑게 투모마임베 다 현도 규르베 실라존들이 띵이진레 케베스. 토탈 마트베 파규기 켐바 나중에 숨지 친이 이제샤. 이나라. 되게 나중에 숨자데 유가rel레더니 기고요레잖아. 투모마임베 다 현세도 그 유레. 안에 두모 마임베 다켄도 규르베 실라 존델기 팅인진스 유데가르잖아 지네당 라통 땡이 존도 데베 아니 팅이들레 히베 아니 파규기 켐바스 나중 무슨 얘기 파규기 켐바스 다 파규기 켐바제 파베 바바델라 아니 타바 숨게기 년도에기 년도 타바다 라겔 타바 대전 타바 숨게기 파바 영초거래 다 년도에나 년도 동람 내손데 근데 라겔 통람 내손데 다가나진 근데 대전기 통람 내손데 거 주고 그래 제가 다 나중 무슨 이 칭이자들 그 투모마이 미유 아니 질라존데 이 팅이잘 때니 키에데겐 아니 대규기에네 다 냐라강 임바이는 파규기 켐바 임바는 나중 무슨 다 나중 무슨 라 아니 강낭에 비캡세 그 나라만 게 메세 소소케 규기 로라 그래서나요 나라 망이 버지요라 율가 가지 나마이나요 지마지진도 또 못해 근데 율망부 연구하래 이나 나중 무슨 일로라 아니 나나게 비캡 강낭에 비캡세 지고래 디나라도 미도 다 예와 셰디올라 다가리샤 년투 라얄 태진기 되솜스 나중 무슨라 년투 년도 파비기 나중 무슨 라얄 파비기 나중 무슨 대전 파비기 나중 무슨 데 도스샤 네 라리 무슨다 나중 무슨라 이응은 이거 벌 송스 다 근데 나중 무슨데 왕봉 무슨다 이징 무슨이는 강래에서바이나 다 나중 무슨 나라리 무슨이가라 이징 무슨인 거르모다 왕봉 무슨이 모르게 나중 무슨 요 말에 해서 나중 무슨 이거 벌 송스 생이 되는 도대비 왕도 제기 senzambada najo chube umabanangi tobada dajin bacha denjungri bache jaros ta tanda gongdo tsingi ja chabade rangi tumoma me daken ani jila zonre ji tingin zen gomale teni khebe gomale tobe khebe dan ayuji kembade ani najo usungi tsingi jabade dodebe wangdo chene dodebe tsingi de jagures ina senzambada ani 나저 주보마랑 유백이 생이데 라 다 잡아요 말해서 그래 대zam인 저기민도 때가라 가래서는 토탈 마트에서 자고도 그 도바단 달진지 토탈 자고도 그래 도대비게 total 미식이 자리요 말이지 강탈 도대비 룰레 임바냐 나중 무슨 영어기 도바산이 자원이 요 말이 다 싱이 줄들라 total 자라반도 젠 미식이 개버시다 요 말이 total 바자 된중 리바스 바자 된중 리바스 자르고데 가레스 산담비게 에네 최강당 임바나 이나양 꾸지 바자 세도기 개버리즈고라 아니 제가 율데 도두가라 율 텔 텔라 코 바자를 때니 키고레스 다 되게 바자 된 중에 제가 리바즈 잘고 때래 있어요.
Uh, we are on page 61, at the end of the bottom of page 61. Yogic dark perceiver. Yogic dark perceiver here is explained in two kind of sections. First, definition, and then its classification or types. Definition of the meaning. The definition of a yogic direct perceiver is a non-conceptual, non-mistaken, exalted knower in the continuum of a spirit that is produced from a meditative stabilization, which is a union of calm abiding and special insight, and which has become its own uncommon empowering condition. So in the definition, we see, its kind of causes. It's produced from meditative stabilization, which is combination of, calm abiding and special insight, and which is its own uncommon empowering condition as set in the definition. And when it says here exalted knower or knowledge of the exalted knower or knowledge of the superior being or noble beings, it can be of any of the three vehicles, which we'll later see in the division. It can be exalted knower of the hearers, as well as exalted knower of the solitary realizer, as well as the exalted knower of the Mahayana. In the meaning, exalted part of seeing and above, of each of the these vehicles. And generally, it is considered that although it is not mentioned here, if it is the yogic direct perceiver, it has to be determinate perception. In the ordinary people, we saw earlier, there is it can be indeterminate, meaning there's an appearance yet not determinate, but here it must be determinate perception. The yogic direct perceiver must be a determinate perception or perceiver. And its divisions, it's on page 63, the middle of the page 63. When yogic direct perceivers are divided, there are three, those of the hearers, three vehicles. Hearers or Sharvakas, solitary realizers, Pratikya Buddha, and Mahayanis or greater vehicles. And then on page 65, at the top, it is said that self-knowing and yogic direct perceiver must be mental direct perceiver. So yogic direct perceiver must be necessarily a mental direct perceiver. There is no yogic direct perceiver which is like a sensory. There's no sense direct perceiver which is yogic direct perceiver. Yogic direct perceiver must be always mental. It has to be a mental. And on the same page, these definitions are from the viewpoint of the Tantrikas Sutra school. However, the Chitra Matrins, mind-only school, and Yogacharya, Tantrika Madhyamika, Yogacharya Tantrika Madhyamika, gives as a definition of direct perceiver a non-conceptual knower arisen from stable dispositions. This definition, referring to the definition that was given earlier of the yogic direct perceiver, non-conceptual, non-mistaken, exalted knower in the continuum of the spirit that is produced from a meditative stabilization, which is the union of calm abiding and special insight, and which has become its own uncommon, empowering condition, is a definition, posited by Sutra school, and however, mind-only school and Yogacara middle way school, a non-conceptual knower arisen from stable predispositions. They come with slight different definition, and in the mind-only school, it doesn't. There's no pervasion of one. It has to have a non-conceptual. 심삼백이 그 저들 똑바닥 똑제 자고를 좀 할수 있어.
total 도바단 자진 바차 된중 그리 봤어 잔다.
네. So in the Chitta Matrins, in their termination, you can see here the difference: non-conceptual knower, and in the Sutra school, Sotantrika, they don't necessarily has to be non-conceptual, and non-conceptual knower arisen from stable predispositions. Stable predispositions or mental imprints or mental latencies. And in the mind-only school, it has to be, as said here, arising from stable predisposition has to be, arising or generated through kind of manifestations of mental latencies or mental imprints.
네, 다 안디 인제기 가상 모som 제도라 엄봉 모som 이징 모som 라리 모som 나저 모som 자시 요지 셴바 어디지 셴베는 기타 모som 셴바디 무서버지 다 디다님도 저중 모som 타는 게 남자 중재 셴나제도 다 저중 제도 다 모som 타는 코니 도저저르지라 단다 디 공도 셴샤베 모som 데서 강가 율도벨로 그냥 라자는 셴송 다 단다 디율 마도 벨로 도즈거리 다 무슨 상황이 제가 셔바이나 출동 것도 셔바다 제바지도 빨리 좀 된다는데 제자와 무슨 단어를 위치에 다디가레스나 처만 두고 있어. 출동 것도 셔바다 제바지도 빨리 좀 된다는데 제자와 무슨 단어를 위치에 무슨 상황들라 처만 두고 가서 안에 상황 눈전이다. 자기도 다디 어디 용기를 시 숨발달 도방 무슨 상황 쭉 오면 무슨 상황 찍당 된도 있어. right? And number zawe teda jir duni soshi number zawe kaso ane chaman lobengi chaman de kaso ane musum tana la dundu shepade loben chora gi chaman number nala ji na de musum tana de ji na de duni de ma sonsha as ane dida jib do sheban de na rather lori dan liu sumbe gomba rapsal sola tawar chawo sa ta de rather lori da aguma sondi liu sumbe nala de kare yore zebaina and the dün 장가지 겨요래 네 가는 도잖아 풀당도 제바다 제바지도 빨리 좀 된다고도 제자와 무슨 타나 레리체 해제로 다때가 수가래서 도박 무슨 타나 죽당 도맹 무슨 타나 찍지네 dün도 제기를 해제다 다 도박 무슨 타나 죽지도 도박 무슨 타나 죽 가래 자기도 저바이나 장가도 봐야바이나 미규 춘즈메 출시직지 좋아 미규 춘진 타고 트레샤바 당스 아니 리귤라 토빌로 타고 군조베샤바 당스 아니 다안진바 제바 당스 다잔진바 Jesu Baba li chunga tangs. Debi ton temba tang, mao bi ton ngobar de ba os, toba ngonzo tona chuk de la teja sha.
그래서 내가 하고 맞는
Tena la duye.
단다 가르 초들에
Toba ngonzo tona chuk zayde.
음
Ta chuldo ngonzo, chaman dogi, chuldo ngonzo shabata jiba jizo ba li chungze, degi tsingdel de rengi yo.
알레
Ta kogi tsingdel ma yabi do la, migi chunze me chul dangzi de, migi chunze me washi ji yorwa.
음
Migi chunze me washi de chul dangzi be. Ta gunzo sheba dangzi de, rigyun la dobe lo te wuz, gunzo be sheba dangzi de. Tadi rigyun la dobe lo gunzo be sheba dang, chul dang gunzo sheba dangzi ra. Jeba jesu pa li chungze, jeba zi de, tanzi me jeba de. Tanzi me jeba dangzi. Ta jenzi ma jesu pa pa zi. Ta dang ta jenzi. Zi de la, kazo ta di do bro. Nda chu je mida di jeba imbe chi zi gyumzan do ko ba ina. Ta di jeba do. Nda mida ba imbe gyumzan la jeba ta su ko ba di. Ta zi bro. O dinde gi jesu pa pa tangs. Ani debi ton temba, debi ton ngar nge le ka di dan di chen yung sambit chi yo temba tangs. Mao be ton ngobar de bas. Mao pa na di dan di che go sambit. Che ya gi toba tej. Tezo la ani toba ngozul ta nang zi. Tezo ka nga toba re zi go sai. Toba yi. Ani ngusum tanang gyumzan ka re zi na. Ani ngusum ma imba. Ta toma ngusum tanang zi di. Ani rabrib so ki lebe sheba ase. Mik rabrib so ki lebe ani sheba de toma ngusum tanang chini dusu ma dhundi dusu tanga yagi durwa.
so with that with the direct yogic direct perceiver we finished the four of the direct perceiver when direct perceivers are divided, there are four: sense, mental, self-knowing, and yogic direct perceiver. If you want to look back, it's on page 52. So we went through those four, of the four divisions of the direct perceivers: sense, mental, self-knowing, yogic direct perceiver. And now next comes, what is mentioned here as facsimiles of direct perceivers, meaning this appears to be direct perceiver, but not exactly the same. Kind of, something that resembles direct perceiver, that sort of imitates, looks like a direct perceiver, but not actually direct perceiver. And it's on page 72, middle of page 72. Ancillary with respect to briefly explaining the presentation of facsimiles of direct perceivers. The quote, it's from, in your text, it's Dignak's Compendium on Prime Cognition, says, mistaken conception, so conventional consciousness, inferential conception arises from inference, memory, wishing conception are facsimiles of direct perceptions, along with dimness of sight. Thus, 7 facsimiles of direct perceptions are asserted: 6 conceptual and 1 non-conceptual. So, in the text by Dignak's Compendium on Prime Cognition, there are 7 facsimiles of direct perceiver, 6 conceptual and 1 non-conceptual, and 6 conceptual, beginning with the mistaken conception. You have all this kind of illustration example in your commentary in the book. So mistaken conception would be mistaking mirage as a water. That would be kind of mistaken conception. Conventional consciousness. Conventional conception says, inferential cognizer realizing sound to be impermanent. And then inferential consciousness, which is mind apprehending a sign. So sign, using a sign and then,
시바들이 배나 다치 미다의 제바이 메이치선 미다바 하몽이 간사들은 미다바데 미다바 김전가래선 제바린도 와서 자 딘디기 김전라 때는 미다바 하고 해지요 고아테 해지요 호텔에 제바나
제바시 아니 니워들 제수 바꿔를 총알해야
말 다당 제바 제수 바리 제바세디 다 제바데
제바들
제바데 다 제수 바발이 중지디 이게 제비 김전라 때는 미다바 하고 해지요라고도 봐줘되긴 다 제바인바 다 당방이나 하고요 버지 다 제바다 미다바니 코니 인참냠자거라 지기는 지이고를 지면은 지면 거래서 대김전 때고 하고 아주 감사되게
inferential conception. I'm looking if it is. Yeah, the same example that Geshe mentioned. Establishing sound to be a permanent. When we use a syllogistic kind of statement, sound is impermanent because it is a functional, entity. So when sound is impermanent because it is a functional entity, when you use that reasoning, you are using functional entity as a reason, as an inferential reason, to prove that sound is impermanent. And then next, arise from inference, meaning by using, functional entity as a reason to prove that sound is impermanent. So through this reasoning of functional thing, you are coming to the understanding of the sound being impermanent. And usually, impermanent and functional thing are, these two are interchange, kind of interpervasive. If one is one, it has to be kind of, mutually kind of, pervasion. And then the next one is memory. Memory could be just, any kind of memory from the past, memory. And wishing conception. The wishing conception is something that you kind of yearn, you yearn in the future yet to come. It would be something kind of haven't happened yet, but yearning, wishing. So these two are, these are six conceptual, and then additional to that, one non-conceptual. 무슨 member 배시 안 배기시라. 무슨
도면 무슨 타나데.
보면서
도면 무슨 타나데라 미그레리 레바.
알레.
미그레리잖아. 미기 살라 마살이 지요라. 어딘디기다 기율 나야 돼. 어디나 간데 세거리야도.
알레지고레시. And the dimness of sight that refers to the non-conceptual. So non-conceptual in your commentary it says same what Geshe was explaining. Dimness of sight refers to that which is seen by a person who has an eye disease causing him to see hairs falling in front of him because of vision problems, seeing kind of hair falling, although it is mistaken, but that kind of seeing hair falling, that's hair falling. That's a non-conceptual direct perceiver, facsimile of direct perceiver. And in the root text of Dharmakirti's, commentary to Dignak's compendium on prime cognition, those six are condensed into four by Dharmakirti's commentary on Diknak's text, prime cognition. And it says, if you wish to know about this in more detail, please look in the Radu text, awareness and knowledge, and in Penja Sonam Thakpa's illumination of the thought. Dinal Tande Wad Logunidi. Also, Dida Shibu Sheba Duna Radio Lori Tanglashto, Liu Sunbeg Gomba Rapselato, Radio Lori She and Liu Sunbeg Gomba Korang, Injidinal Koranzogiti, Chingunal Tisha. The Penjisonam Tabegi, Penjisonam Tabegi, Liu Sunbegi Gomba Rapse, Sol Tower Chaulashto. A third illustration of a thought on the third chapter of Dharmakirti's commentary on Diknak's compendium of prime cognition and so forth. Dida Shidu Shabadina Radio Lori than Lusunbe Kumbarapsel Solo Tower Chawlash on the Loy.
On the dicta. Then the Injigi Luri Kazanga Luri Dundu Yawa, Sumdu Yawa, Nisu Yazi. There is also Sum Chini. The Luri Dundu Yawa Te Nangi, Tambote Monsum Shabazati Zoji. Taniva Jeba Shabat, Musum Sheba, Luri Dundu Yitu Musum Sheba Jeba Shabat, Cheshi Shabas. Martin Tatin is that Jeba de Chava, and Nipa Jeba de Chadre. That Jeba saying Dola Jeba Gitela Karazanat, Tamputsini de Cha. Rangi Denta Yanda Latin, Rangi Jaja Kojula Milivish, Sherik Jeba Gitini is. That Jirangi Jeba Zigot. Rangi Ten Zedio, Jeba Zed Hiagi, Jido Marzaro Tusadi, Tenta Yanda, Yunzen Yanda Jilla Teni, and Rangi Jajang Monjulas, Rangi Jajang Monjula Milui, Sheris. Ta Jeba Zehiagi, Jeba Lote, and Yum Ten Garizana, Kohebi Ji, and Tayandaji, Ribayandaji, La Tene, and Korangi Yulte, Jaja Yulte, and Koyuri Bakajila, Jaja Koyuri, Jaja Monjuri in Sona, Jajida Jajadela, young Monjur Koyurs and Yawan news chamber. Monjur Koyur news Yawan news chene, Jaja Monjur Zade, Tangi, Ganlating, Mazogi, Wambung on some eating on some running on some Najong on some Yul said, they Yul, the Sokangala, the Mancha Wambung on some Yul Kain Bate, Jajong Monjur Chader. Ta te main ke jaja koyuring jaja de la jaja koyur jingores tende jaja koyur de la ene milu azena matulwa matulwe ene jerik ze la ene ta dang yumzan la tene khie de la sheba jila jerik ze war yamana daji da tonji yuni chuwe ene sheba jila jerik za de daji da tonji yubala tene khie de kin khie be sheba la Jerigze. Tindigi logila ta jebazigires. Ta rangi tenta yanda letene rangi jaja koyula sardu milu ripade Jesu jebazmi tsini is. Ta jeba ina jeba dangi gandle jidangi jeba zamjiche. Ta jeba tala tsema dan tsema mayimba ni yubenani tsema tela tegala tsini gi zurna la ta sardu milu ripa jaris. Jawamato jen milu azade jatsam. Ta sardu milu azade Tomar Jalwas, Tomar Matulugonin, and it Tobe, Indigata, Dajitanji Gubale, Gubene, Yanata Yumzan Latini Kibene, Semajilla, Dajibat Semaz, it was Majagire.
So with that, at the beginning, we saw knowledge and awareness classifying into 7, 3, and 2. And in the classification of the 7, we finished the first one, which is direct perceiver. And now the second one is inferential cognition or cognizer or perceiver. Inferential. It's on page unmarked 75. Inferential and subsequent cognizers are the next two. And inferential The definition reads, the definition of an inferential cognizer is a determinative knower which, depending on its basis of correct sign, is incontrovertible with regard to its object of comprehension, a hidden phenomena. So inferential cognizer arises from, you know, as said here, its basis from which arises is a correct sign or correct reasoning or valid reasoning. And then the object that it kind of understand or apprehend must be hidden phenomena. Usually when we talk about the object of the knowledge, object of the apprehension, we talk about object which is, manifested and then another object hidden. The manifested objects are usually objects apprehended by sense drug perceivers. Sense drug perceivers objects are almost all are manifested or obvious kind of, and inferential cognitions object are a hidden one, hidden phenomena. And it has to be, as said here, incontrovertible, non kind of, non-deception. And incontrovertible with regard to its object of comprehension, non-deceiving. And it can be generated either through what we call sound generality or meaning generality. This consciousness can be arises either from these two. And so that's the meaning of the inferential cognition or cognizer. And then inferential cognizer can be it can be either a valid or prime cognizer or invalid cognizer. So if inferential cognizer is a valid or prime according to this translation, then you just need to add new. You just need to add a new, and then remaining definition would be same as the definition of the inferential cognizer. 세물라 서도 밀와 서도 뭐 심박에 저거에 뭐 상호지 부지기하러 가운데다.
지바래. 다 된되게 제바들라다 낭세기다 예와미도데 숨지. 이치기 제바 다베 제바 모답 제바 다베 제바 이치기 제바잖아. 또마 예와 낭세기 숨요데스. 다데 예와 제단데 저거로 가서다. 다지다 예와 최고데 가레서 바이나. 자위기 잘잘라 원유도 고유를 예와 니체소. 자위 잘잘라 원유도 고유를 예와 니체네. 아니 원유들다 원부 원숭기다 율로카이메데 망체 대체 아니 다 고유를 세도라 고유들라 그런 나세기 양 중세 고유다 신도 고유즈네 나세기 예와 니체인 거 잘자 그런라 다 중잘자 중세 고유다 신도 고유즈네 예와 니체베 윤전라 때네 다 제바기 예와라 아니 모두 제바 다베 제바 이체기 제바 숨체고 윤전도데 때래 다 대나니다 이체지바 다나디 이체지바기 생이자 운동라 랑기된 이체기 다양다라 때네 랑기 자자 신고라 밀레 제릭데 담부치니스 다 신이 줄 망체디 지바 차들데 줄레레 미나 도즈 자레모도 다 단단디들라 가레잖아 자위기 제바 생이 코랑라 창데발라 줄지 미나여데 이체기 다양달 고 제바 코랑히 히야기 다들라 아니 이치기 따지 거래 이치기 따지 거래스 이치기 따라더니 아니 제바디 키고요레스 대담이 조지마도 자위기 제바 원도 자위기 제바기 생기지 자서 고단 집어지 괜찮들 다 이치기 따지도 이치기 따지도 간디질라 자고요레스 이치기 따데 배나 저기 뒤로 배나 짐바당을 론전 주어서 보지 다 짐바 당와이나 아니 신디라 가서 로저 첨부 중 그래 심비디부 짐비 로저 튕기 될라데 아니 사기게 짐바 당와이나 로저 야첨부 중 그래서 지 송샤요레스 데 송샤바데 당아란 쪽에 갈로다 맞아 미기 시간에 통해 심바당에 대디불 나민들라 나민데 소소 롱저 정보 유튜브 전부 자그 여바된 아주 통합이 산이 통해요 말이 학 쉐어요 말이 요 말에데 다 상이기 손샵이 롱들라 이체제네 라 상이기 가르선이 진변 어제 팀기 대집이 식된지 손요래 데 식들라 이체제네 다아 짐바다나 롱저 중기래서 알아들라 짐바다나 짐빈디불라 롱저 주와데 중화 다 예비 로지요로 또 지어라. 다 데네기 로데 다 심빌로주 팀기 대집 롱체젠 랑기 덴지돌 밀로인데 제바스니다 빌롱이 매체제 다 데르 거그래. 또 다거베나 심빌 롱체 팀기 대집 롱체젠 랑기 덴지돌 밀로인데 덴지돌 밀로인데도 덴데기 손데 사기기 손레 콜라 노라요 사기기 손라 노라와도 출라요 말에 임바인자 송되게 가르쳤던 바에는 땡지 돈라 술라요 말이에요. 땡지 돈라 밀려와인데 아니 제바숨지 답을롱이 매세스. 제바숨지 답을롱이 매세 비치르되다나 다 제바숨지 돈라 다요. 통항률도 배찰랑 온선스면 넘어면 받아. 주제 고주도 배찰에 주제 고주도 배찰라 가리 이지제바게 넘어면 받아. 신도 고주도 배찰라 가리 롱스면 넘어면 바이네스 다 되게 제마숨이래. 제마숨부 되게 내봐요 말이에요. 다 될랬더니 다 심바당을 lon전주와 도비 제바지요. 된되게 제바데다 이치기 다 차들. 이치기 다라 케베다 제바데 차들. 다 전시도 보되나 다 가르쳐. 전신이 지금 lon전 팀기 대제비 롱상기 된제던 라밀로 도비 제바다 보고서 다 가르쳐.
Inferential cognizer is divided into three. It's on page 77. Inference through belief, inference through renown, inference by power of the fact. Earlier we talked about generally the object of knowledge can be categorized into two, manifested object and then the hidden object. And hidden object can be further categorized into slightly hidden and extremely hidden. So to know those kind of, extremely hidden and slightly hidden, there has to have kind of, cognition or cognizers. And therefore comes these three kind of, divisions of the inferential cognizer: inference through belief, inference through renown, and inference by the power of the fact. Now, the first one, inference through belief, again, if you look at the definition, when you look at the definition, most of the definitions are similar with the kind of primary definition that we saw at the beginning, inferential cognizer. And then when you have this inference through belief, you just need to add kind of one, section or small part of it. In this section, you just need to add inferential cognizer through belief. So if you look at the definition, a definition of inferential cognizer through belief is a determinative knower which, depending on its basis, a correct sign of belief. So correct sign of belief is the one that you need to add. Otherwise, remaining the same is incontrovertible or non-deceiving with regard to its object of comprehension, a very hidden phenomenon. So, inference through belief apprehends its object, which is extremely hidden. And if you look at the illustration, you can see here, inferential cognizes inferential consciousness, which realizes that the scripture, so from giving or from generosity, resources, from ethics, a happy migration. So this is a quote from Buddha Sutra. And this quote says that through the practice of generosity, one will have resources, wealth. Through the practice of ethics, one will attain happiness or happy migration. And so by relying upon such, scriptures, you come to the conclusion or knowledge that, generosity leads to, attaining of wealth. A practice of ethics leads to happy migration, because these are something that we cannot be proved through our sensory kind of perceptions. We cannot see these kind of like through eye sense organ. We won't be able to see through giving, able to attain, resources of wealth, or from ethics, happy migration. So we need to rely upon, Buddha scriptures in order to kind of, understand. And with that understanding, we can then sort of generate this thought. It is a thought, this cognition that, a generosity can lead to, wealth, and ethics to happy migrations. And in so usually here again, Geshe was using a Buddhist dialectic kind of syllogism that from giving resources, from ethics, happy migration is a valid or is it reliable because it is free from three in your book says three contradictions. It's on page 78 if you want to read. 또 제바숨라는 디교시 통보대 응교제 중세고교제 안에 신고로 응교는 동학응교계 응교라 가서
응교도 메찰라 무슨 세면에
무슨 세마성 제바네
중세고교도 메찰라
제바
이치 제바인데
슬라디 제
이치 제바인다
될 제바 저부터 저와들만 연락이 맞죠. 그래서
땡이 더 주민들 중세고교들 중세고교도 신도고교를 있더라.
네.
거기
동학문교를 온 것은 세면 내보내면 제 중세고교라 제바시엔 신도고교를 농세면 내보면 말해.
신도고교도 농세면 내보면
네.
대대 이치 제바도 찾아라. 중세고교도 배찰라. 제바 삼세 말에 당가 되나 얘기 말고 다리 놀려를 다티
the individual direction, power of the fact. So we're talking about the three free from three contradictions, and the three contradictions basically refers to it is on page 78. To the manifest. Three like free from three contradictions is on page 78. To the manifested object, it should not be contradicted by direct valid cognition. Slightly hidden should not be contradicted by power of the fact, and extremely hidden phenomena should not be contradicted by scriptural quotations. So these are the three contradictions which it is mentioned in the kind of commentary on page 78. They manifest slightly hidden, very hidden phenomena. No. Not the which one this.
Tene ta ichi jebaji. Ta tabe jebaji dola. Rangi den ta yang dala. Tene rangi jalchan dajun tabala milu ijenris. Yang dajun tabal kutensa gi jeba de hiagi tenta de karezen dajun tabe tajila tene hebege shebajila ane tada yanda je tsingi jama to tsawegi shebagi tsingi kanga jiba yoji tan dajun tabe ta den dajun taba je deula karijila jago re zabaina pena ngazun diro tanda pena namke gil dawa yora namkil dawa dela ndijido ki dela ribong zoraji semjeng zoraji zonyeji chargido o del dawa dela ni ribong jenze ni mingde lawi ge ngonjore ribong jenze ate dan dawa ze ate ni namkil dawa ge mingi namda ane ming minda modo ji la ming minda mangbo ja chabde tere da lawi ngonjore dela ribong jenze go ta tendege ribonjen chejen kyola lawa jejibin de jorun inde kyola lawa jejibin de jorun inde la kola lawa jejibin de lawa zenen da jorun gures de jorun imbe de garezena lawa jejibin de jorun inde toyun la yewe chlar ta de la toyun la yewe de kon da dang tobe ge da chog ro ha Jigari by Nakola and Ming Ming Kari Nandamindata Tachogres, the Tobiula you H's. Tobiuli Michel Zata Chibare. Dadon Tobiules. Tiki Yumzenji and then Tata Yanda, Tindiki Tadela. Tatoyuna Yubi Tala Tene and his large age when they in the Toyuna Yubi Tala Tene Hibi Jibatela Tata Yanda. Pena Tanda di Jodi little churches in it. But on Jodi di Chuje, Kyola large age when they in the Toyuna Yubi in the God. 다 조지디 코란라 조지디라 나와지 지금 되죠 좀 그런 게. 아니 다니 추 간단가 이면 추레리 된도 아니 콜 나와지 지금 되죠 인데 또인로 요이처든 다 텔레테네 콜 다니 카르마 지금 되죠 인데 제도 말아서 미기 나라 나와서도 가면서 니마서도 된대요라. 어때도 간가 추진 아니 니마이나 니마지 지금 되죠 인데 또인로 요이처 카르마인데 karma judgment during the toil of your wages to going to give it tatela tata yandas is good. That's engine is the Revon General Lawaji Bende Jurundo Tobish Balta Wuzo Tarisha.
Second, inference through renown. It's on page 80. Definition of an inferential cognizer through renown is a determinative knower which, depending on its basis, a correct sign of renown is incontrovertible with respect to its object of comprehension, a terminology suitability. Again here, if you look at where does this cognition or cognizer arises, it arises, the basis is a correct sign of renown. That's the only kind of, part that you need to add to the definition. A correct sign of renown, something that is renowned, and as we see in here, illustration is the inferential consciousness that realizes it as a suitable to express the rabbit possessor by the term moon. So, when we look at the moon, we see in the middle kind of, image of like a rabbit, and therefore, rabbit possessor is a synonym for the moon among many other names. So we can use this kind of designation for the moon because the reason here is that because we can designate such through our conceptual thoughts and sound, and the syllogism is in your commentary as well on page 80. The subject, rabbit possessor, a name for the moon, is suitable to be expressed with the term moon, quote and unquote, because of existing among objects of thought. And among, existing among object of thought, basically it means that we can designate whatever, whatever that comes in our thought. And we can designate this table as a moon. We can designate some people's name as a moon or sun. It can be designable, because these can arise in our thought.
다 숨바데 당고도지 바래 랑기 된 모토기 다양다라 되네 랑기 자자 중세 고율의 밀려의 자리 손배천이 전신의 남에다도 이제 받아보고 당고도지 바지도 다 제제 미다리 제바 임베지 다데 나 미다바 임바데 가르잖아 가족의 다 가르도 원봉 무슨기 또 돼요 말아 띵도 거라 제바미 제바자다 미다바자다 제바자다 다나진 두지자 대소강가 안에 민이 남다인 비금전되네 민이 남다인 비금전되네 다 미다바데스 그 가르즈는 다 제바레도가 하세 다 제바 인수네 제바다 미다바니 민이 남다래 와세 로아 제바다 미다바니 민이 남다 인수는 다 제바이나 다 미다바 인구래 스니 금전될라더니 제비 금전될라더니 미다바 도빌 로지로 될다
On page 81, bottom third, the third of the inferential cognizer, inference by the power of the fact. The definition of an inferential consciousness by the power of the fact is determinative knower, which, depending on its basis, a correct sign by the power of the fact. Power of the fact at the basis. It's incontrovertible with respect to its object of comprehension, a slightly hidden phenomenon. An illustration is the inferential consciousness, which realizes that sound is impermanent. So the object that it apprehends is, slightly hidden, such as, the example here is sound being impermanent. And how can we understand, apprehend sound being impermanent? As said earlier, the impermanence nature of the sound cannot be understood or apprehended through our sensory organs or sensory, perceivers. Therefore, it must be understood through, the reasoning, and the reasoning usually, in the syllogism, sound is impermanent because it is, as said earlier, it's a functioning entity or functioning thing. So functioning thing or composite thing, these are usually kind of, interchangeable. If something is a functioning thing, through logic necessarily has to be impermanent. So we use that kind of, logic or reasoning or sign to prove that sound is impermanent. So such is as said here, the power of the fact, inferential consciousness or cognition.
And then the break.
Yes, so we'll take a break here.
Yeah, then Adi injigi Musum Shepata Jepa Shepa need Dory. That in a Nota Tazo, but they got a Jepa, it was Nota Tazo to do. Those who call you, choose you, the Shindo call you, the Batizo. To do on the time, they're setting on the young science, the loan in the Chimachebaina, Lamsan Koya Zeti, Cabore.
So up to here, we finish, first two of the 7 division of the, awareness and knowledge. And the first two, direct perception and direct perceiver or direct perceiver, and the second, inferential cognizer. Among these two, the second, inferential cognizer, is a little more kind of difficult to understand. But for that, without reading commentaries and putting more effort, it would be difficult to kind of to get it totally or understand completely.
And the somebody that Geshe, Musum Jeba Geshe, that somebody Chadere. That Geshe, Zaviki, Rangi Tambuni, the Musum, the Jeba Nila, and a Semar Jaswan. And it's Semar the Jatasuna, Niba some Disumba Geshe, the Lela Chatter, Kaji with Kangi Sema Java, Kaji Tambu Yang Jago or Moto, Kaji Mutun, Kaji Tambuni, Sumba Kanga Sema Indigan, Yomare. Kaji Gangi Sema Jasaba, the Kanga, Kaji Tambu de Tambu Gangi Balatala, Kaji Sema Samas in Jago or Moto. Takola here, the Rimba de la Kaji Machi, Rimba member, Midam, Kaji Machi Mambo, Yachi Kaji Tambu de Samaraja, the Kaji Tambu Pension, Niba Sumba Jiba Kata, Unilo Kazi, Kigu Yovana, the Kanga, a Jesse Ganga Chad. Like Gala Jiba, Semala Jaba inare, Mosum gave Wango Yin, Ringosum, Najosum to Kangala, Kaji Tambo, Semadan, Kaji Niva Sumba to Kanga, chasing you to below Kajila, and Chassis God. That Dila round and jiggy Semangame Tozimbe, Semini Riba, Chasing the Kutsini to Savana, the remote of Jado. Tozin to be Ribaz Jason, Dom de War. Senior, Tozin to be Ribaz, Mar Kurang Gishebang, Kuran Denji, Gishebang Amajigi, Tozin Betunting, Lariang, Aranja to Shivan Chimatiki Toba Inza, Tozin to be Ribaz, Cheshi singing the Cotton Dordujan Javana did it.
the third of the seven is subsequent cognizer on page 84. Subsequent cognizer, if you remember the previous two, direct perceiver and inferential perceiver cognizer, in those two you have what is in your book translated as a prime cognizer or valid cognizer, which is the first moment of the cognition. So the first two, inferential and direct cognizer, these two has only prime or valid cognizer. And when apprehending any object, in terms of the sequences of the apprehension, it goes through kind of the moment by moment, right? So the first moment of apprehension is a valid or prime cognizer, and then after the first cognition, the all remaining whatever that because there is a continuation of that apprehension or understanding of the object, right? So the remaining all cognizer is subsequent cognizer. And if you look at the definition kind of, seems kind of long, but in easy, simple way, it is in your book on page 85. Subsequent cognizer is basically knower which realizes that which has already been realized. You are knowing something that is already been, known or realized. And so that's the simple meaning. And so as said earlier, after first moment of the apprehension or knowing of the object, then the second, third, whether it is, inferential, yogic, direct, whatever, all are considered as subsequent cognizers.
다 제시라 원숨이 ngor 제시 지다 아니 도비 ngor 제시 지 니자고래 다 원숨나 도바즈네 로델라 원숨이 ngor 로지다 도비 ngor 로지 세마델라 자네민도 다 세마델라 자나 로라 코나라 원숨이 ngor 지다 도비 ngor 코니 도저 여미다 여바데 셰다 도비 ngor 로텔라 다 제바 당 도비 ngor 로티 강아래서 근데 당기 공랑아 저 제바기 친이단 제바이 이와 숨자서 모두 제바 답에 제바 이치 제바 어때도 그거 도비 ngor기베 로레 다 도비 ngor기베 로이나 제바 인구 그래서는 대 인구 말에 도바 인젤라 제바 인구 말에 제바는 인지미지 다다 덴질을 때니 키데베 김전 다도 김전라 때니 키데 긴기 로지고요 제바젠들라 다 도바 잠라 되고 다다 김전라 때니 키고요 말에 원봉 무슨지 담배 도바 용초월 변나 본진 도바 던진 도바 존진 도바 세로 대가라도 원봉 무슨지 미기 율 통할 때니 치르 기베 도바든이 요래 어때서 도바에 대다 제바 인구요 말에 지대 되네 다 제시 당도 된 원숨나 도바니 라 체마르자니 되게지 니바가니 바데 제시라자 다 원숨이 원숨라 레양 아니 원봉 원숨 이기 원숨 라링 원숨 나정 원숨 지유베나니 다 지자 로라 그지 당부 체마당 그지 니바 아니 제시도 좀 하자 다 다가는 제바라양 제바기 담에 제바기 담에 당디는 미스기 자에서 말에 제바라양 당의 공도 모두 제바 답에 제바 이제기 제바 숨가 ngor교베 그지 니바가 임바디 제바 ngor교베 제시지도 좀 하자 이제 단테나 교수 도난 중 유명하 미시 도난 중 여나 디레 디 이문제지 여러 등에 원봉원숨 이기원숨 라리원숨 나정원숨이 ngor기비다 디지기 ngor기비 제시들이 용기래서 돌아 이문제들라 가상 아주 공도 이문지자 임바 디 이문데다 니가 수단다 제시 셰비가 이문 등이라 또도 가서다 민다와지 소두지요래 민다와 차대요래 가래 민다와 가디진 차요래서베나 가상 공동 아주게 이문 셰체바데 고거지 지금 윤제진면 좀 야마송 가래서는 이문 거지 니바 자기 말에 가상 공도 가래서는 이문 거지 니바 자요 말라서 개바 숨기 룩거네 개바 Sumji Lukuni Tamade, Levin Chojo Giluti, Ranula Tabains and Kotijan Dozan. Yundakona Kigrezen. Yundakona Kiwade, Levin Chojo Lucene. Deja Dola, Tegarizan, Wangoni Tabi Yimans or Tate, Wangoni Tabi, Wambungosumji Tabi Yimante, Gajiji Modakia Mares. Chidan Yimon Kanga Yingo Inze Ganga Tegu, Uyon. Ta Yimon in Wangoni Tabi Yimon Yingu Mare. They might be Yimon Chi Yijung, also Mamputin, Mampuyo Chores. When a Toby Tabi at Tandagando, Jeba Mampujason, Jeba Tezuka Tabi, Yimon Riki Chor. The Jeba Tezuka Tabi, Yimon Tezukanga, the Yimon Rete, Nedi Cardo Tadi. The Jesse you got it. Wangoni Tabi Yimon Chago Mares.
Yes. So subsequent cognizers on page 84, the definition of a subsequent cognizer is a knower which is not a prime cognizer or valid cognizer and which realizes what has already been realized by the former prime cognizer inducing it. So as said earlier, the symbol would be knower which realizes which has already been realized, cognizer. And subsequent cognizers are divided into two on page 85, direct and conceptual subsequent cognizer. And direct and conceptual subsequent cognizer. And conceptual cognizer can be, any of the three types of inferential cognizer that we saw earlier, inference through belief, through renown, through through power of fact. However, whatever is conceptual cognizer doesn't necessarily has to be inferential cognizer, because inferential cognizer always must be arisen, based on reasoning or logic, we said earlier, And however, conceptual cognizer doesn't need to rely upon, reasoning. A conceptual cognizer can generate it through a sensory, direct perceiver, sound, like hearing sound or smelling. It doesn't has to be relying upon reasoning. Therefore, doesn't necessarily has to be inferential cognizer. So the direct a subsequent cognizer. The second moment of the direct, perceiver, then is, direct, subsequent cognizer, and likewise, inferential cognizer. From the second moment is inferent, subsequent cognizer, and here you can see the four direct subsequent cognizers on the same page 85. There are four direct subsequent cognizers: sense, mental, self-knowing, and yogic. So for the direct subsequent cognizer, there are four. And inferential cognizer, we can also say that subsequent cognizers can be of three, types. The second moment of the three types of subsequent inferential cognizer that we mentioned earlier: belief, renown, power of the fact. The second moment of all these three would be, subsequent cognizer. And now here, the four direct subsequent cognizers: sense, mental, self-knowing, and yogic. If you remember or not, in the earlier we went through one of the this mental direct perceiver. That mental direct perceiver and the subsequent mental perceiver here, these are not similar. It's different. And the earlier, when we talk about mental direct perceiver, it kind of retains for only one moment, and we saw three different interpretation, and our own system is according to, I think, Khechok Dharmotra, and which means the final moment of the apprehension usually induces by sensory, sensory um, organs, induces sensory organs. And however, the mental, subsequent perceiver doesn't necessarily has to be always induces by sensory. It can be induces by inferential cognition as well.
다 되게 염전자님도 공부자님도 다 그지 니파 가이마데 당지 공도 그지 당보데 무슨 나 제바데 저기 그지 당보데 참아래 그지 니파 벤전이 숨바 지방가 바카 가져 여바니 윤 가져 여바나 아니 그지 니파 가이마네 고 제시레제 샤로 데 르벤 조조기 텔렌 치와자데 르벤 조조기 손레 르벤 조조기 텔렌레 무슨 나 제주 바바 그지 제수 바베 당보 그지 마니니 참아이라 대다기 윤도 교배 두바단 대화 탐이 돼봐 치마나니 참아임바 방바오 예송베 체르스 갑디 투브디 지바 지부 지발라 제 송세 다 최적이 레벤 최적이 텔레나라 가리 송자잖아 무슨 당이 공도 자세방 아주 무슨 당 제바 니가라 참마르리 자로 무슨 다 제바 니보게 당보 그지만 니데 무슨 그지 당보다 제바 그지 당보 니데 참마레스 대마임베 그지 니바 펜제네 코다 두디 예메 인지집에 셰바 강임바나 대 강가 제시레 참마임바 방바오지디 참마 마레 랍샤 참마 마레지디 다 참마 마이나 율도 벨로네레요네 강레다 제시 마돈도서 민도즈니티 참마임바 방바오자디 데레 자 참마 마레지디올라 참마 마임바 데게 그 율도 벨로레 율도 벨로 인잖아 참마 레미도 참마 마이나 다 제시 마도 Tini Kanrola, Yulto Belola, Samana Jason Yubukanumato, and Rosayomari, Tinichi, Ingores. That to the Chibazade, as a Kamdi to the Chiban in Dibuchi Balacheto. Tubada de Watami de Bezaro, Tubada de Watami de Bezidono, Kogi to the Yemik in Zeji Zidono, put Yuchi Vajina in the again, then Yon Dibu de la Chibachina yon. 유아여 되긴들 두대 예매 되지로 다 두대 예매 자대가 디부지 발라 셰바레스 케지마 당부기 디부당 케지마 니베기 디부 숨베 디부지 대도가 세메기 디부 직바이 이마 선상 고 두대 지지레즈네 염전대 지고서
디케시라 팅게 로산서 이게 로주인데
안디고
잉이 제시랑 제시는 주 시시 니번은 순간 장고 또 제시를 제보 좀 조금
되니 미시 로메
또 로메 자고랑
로우데
안디 자원을 요 등이 로션 되도
야
자원을 냥 콘수 체를 상고요
알레
at the end of page 85 there are two conceptual subsequent cognizer, those induced by direct perception and those induced by inference. I think I should have gave the explanation earlier. An illustration of a conceptual subsequent cognizer induced by direct perception is a consciousness ascertaining blue, which is produced subsequent to a direct perceiver apprehending a blue. An illustration of a conceptual subsequent cognizer induced by inference is the second moment of an inferential consciousness that realizes sound to be impermanent. And the next on page 86, the middle of the page. This is because it says in Dharmottara, the text called the correct hidden. The first moment of a direct perceiver or of an inferential consciousness are prime cognizers, but later moments which do not differ in establishment and abiding and are continuations of them have forsaken being prime cognizers, unquote. Sameness in establishment abiding on this occasion is said to refer to sameness of effect. So as said here, the first two moments of the whether it's a direct perceiver, perception, cognizer, or inferential cognizers are, these two first moments are a valid cognition or a prime cognizer in this fashion. And the later moments after the first moments are all considered as, I think in English, just subsequent cognizer, yeah. Later moments which do not differ in establishment, abiding, and continuation of them have focus. And just
가레잖아. 지난 율도 빌로 있나 세마나 제신이 부가노 인고레스 데니마도 로사요 말에 다 세마 말에 제바되기 제신 바되기 슈를 두는 거래. 세마에 뭐 방법어서디 그 율도 빌로로 와서 야 율도 빌로 인디 세마 레미도 세마메나 타고 제신 바데 그 란슈기 두 그래서
유도 별로에는 참마다.
율도 빌로 있는 세마나 제신이 부가노 인고.
네.
다디 또 받아 무슨 개발이 말이 지단계 율도 빌로 있는 세마나 제신이 부가노 인고 그래.
So here, the first moment of direct perceiver or an inferential consciousness are prime cognizer, but later moments which do not differ in establishing and abiding and are continuation of them have forsaken being prime cognizer. What it is saying here is that, in simple form, they're saying that these are not, after the first moment, it's not prime cognizer or valid cognizer. Usually, the understanding here is that whatever cognition or consciousness that apprehends the object either must be one of two. Either has to be valid cognition, prime cognition, and subsequent cognition. So when it is said that these are not prime cognition or prime cognizer, then it means that the remaining one, which is subsequent cognizer. And this would the Jakarta cup the Dubdijik, but the Debujik.
Sadi Dubdijik, Zate, Karesana, Pena Yulto Vilo Kan, Tanda, Kaji Tampodan, Kaji Nivada, Sumbate Zokanga Karesana, today you make in Zeji Reta. Today you make in Zeji Zedua, Hogi in Dibur Gube, Dibukan Bade, Kaji Tampi Dibutan, Kaji Nibin Dibula, Soson Yomare, and Dubun, Tubatinium, Nebatinium, Gabatinium, today you may say it is over. Tubatinium, Nebatinium, Gabatinium, Intengila, today you may love. Tak Kaji Tampuk in Dibutan, Kaji Nibin Dibutan, Sumbin Dibutizokanga, Law, and Tuna Tumium, Nene Nanyam, Gana, Ganyam, Imazam, could today you may begin Zelatene. And Tubata Watami Tepe Sonati, Teres. Take it on that with Tubata Watami Tesidol. Tezuki Semik in Djibouti, or today you mean Zeji is it? Good.
Sameness in establishment and abiding on this occasion is said to refer to sameness of effect or consequences or result. The first moment, second moment, or third moment, whatever that has been generated, sameness in a sense that the coming into form and then existence and then cessation, all kind of they are all happen at the same time because of the result of one prime cognition or valid cognition, and also having a same consequences or result.
어떻게 다 드린데 야잖아.
Yes.
다 드린데나 내가 지가래잖아. 원숨당 아주 도바제도. 원숨도 도바제도 율도 별로 임바 간시라. 아니 원숨도 도바니 예와 쳐야돼. 또도 가부소리 랑상 예와 쳐야돼. 거기 원숨을 거기 도바래서는 예와 쳐거든. 가보려 줘라. 대니 예와 쳐 톱소나. 아니 단다 템마다 제신이데 고 런싱기 레라고 차는 거. 다때 인도라 페나 가도 디요라. 다다디 싱깅 볼도 보시나. 싱깅 볼도 가족이 단단 가족이 늘려요. 미긴도 좀 사인도라 미게 생긴 볼에 통하다 샘나랑 아주기 샘나라 디 생긴 볼에 삼베게 로직이고로 디 무슨 자들 공무슨 자들 다 이마이나 단단디랑 아주 통하래 취소 아주 감비 질러라서는 야마나 산이도 디 매베 내갑나 내갑라 디 마통와라 아니 말 통샤바디 두스마 거기 입당 조다당 대조강아 두스마 가졸라 지 입든디지 조다 든디지 선배 차례지거라 텔라 던지려고 던지 기바텔라 던지 대 차르할 때네 대 싱깅 볼로 싱깅 볼레샤 대 싱깅 디레 선배게 롱어 차례지거라 내야지거라 어디 도바래 곧 도바되죠. 가르즈는 이지 규발라든 이게 저기 로지데스. 다던 다지다 던지 규발라든 당기 제리 이제 제바 승이 자는도 강가라 제리 이제 자기도. 제리 이제 자고도 가르즈는 뭐 다지다 던지 가로지 규발라든 에 제다 바인자 제리 저 단다디 로트 서부 쳐바이나 고 던지 규발라든 이게 되죠레스. 다 야메나 다지 되도나 다 가르즈 거잖아. 다 미치게 당 아주 나치 미다 제발 나 미다베기 고다 되기로 나 미다베 고다 모토 지도라 나 미다바레 미다바 임베 임장 가레선 그지기질은 도기민도 와서 다음에는 제바레 와서 제바스도 가레잖아 나도 유현을 해야 바레 와서 유현을 해봐 임베 임장이 해봐 제베 칭이라 유현을 해봐데 그러나 제베기 뭐레스 제베 렌진레스 제가 다 제바 그런 유견을 해야 바인바 그런 하고도 제바 하인바 하고도 하스 제가 제바 인바 하고도라 제바다 미다바 자딩이 본이 민 다대 민이 남다래 민 미다 장지마도 유견을 해야 바인바다 깨지깨지 인지유바 강가 지바를 두지마 다때네 다 다미다바 네빌로지어라 어텐데 뭐 로데 단 다질을 때니 해야 되죠 다지 규발했더니 이게 되게 두스마 여지고
So what is important from what we covered today is able to distinguish direct perceiver and conceptual perceiver. Both are both of these two cognition apprehends its object, and if you are able to understand these two, then you can easily understand a valid or prime cognition and subsequent cognition. And the example Geshe was using here in explanation is when you look at the singing bowl, and you look at the singing bowl directly by your eyes, and through your kind of looking at the singing bowl, you have a thought. This is singing bowl, right? This is a direct perception or direct cognition. And sometime later, you left this room, you are outside, or tomorrow when you think about the same singing bowl of its shape, appearance, color, and you have an image in your thought. That image in your thought is generated by what is called meaning generality or generic image. So that understanding of singing bowl comes through your general image of singing bowl, not directly seeing, but through in your remembrance or in your seeing of earlier, and that is a conceptual understanding, apprehension. And why it is conceptual is because it has kind of understood through either meaning generality or what we call sound generality. So that is meaning generality or sound generality. Understanding through that is what is meant by earlier in the definition when it says, in the definition of inferential cognizer, determinative knower. That is what determinative knower means. It has to be understood either through meaning generality or sound generality. So sound meaning image or sound image. So sound generality or sound image means, somebody kind of, if somebody explains you sound being impermanence through kind of, verbal explanation that sound is impermanent because it is momentary, because it is functioning thing. Whatever is functioning momentary has to be by nature impermanent. And with that kind of explanation, when you generated, oh, sound is impermanent, that understanding is generated through sound generality. So, you come to that understanding or conviction through sound generality. So sound generality and meaning generality, kind of the image that is created through in your mind, is what is mean, in the earlier translated as a determinative novel.
하나 그런 니 산볼 생긴볼 그랑라 미지기 아주 생긴볼 마통하지. 로 미지기 대세 얘기로 생긴볼 제든 대세 잡는 거도 저기는 그 저다 딘디요레스 입 딘디요레 나 딘디요레 아니 그 배저 딘디는 배저 지기레스 텔라 생긴볼 지기요레스 대세 잡이나 나텔라 때네 당 아주기 생긴볼 하고 해지요레 대 아주 대세 잡긴 간사되긴 대세 잡아다 냠도 아주기 밀람나 나위나라 지 거기 저다다 입당 대수 강지 지 람람 차례지요라 그 차례대 되지래 다 차례 될라드는데 될라 생긴볼 지기 사례스입니다 내시해야지요라 어디 다 도바들
The other example, if you use the same example of singing bowl with the sound generality, you have never seen a singing bowl, and if somebody explain you what singing bowl is, singing bowl has this shape and color and how to use it and kind of sound that it makes. And after explanation, you have an image in your mind, right? Oh, this must be a singing bowl. That image is what is called sound generality, and a thought that confirms or conviction that now this is singing generality is what we call here conceptual, thought or conceptual understanding of singing bowl. Yes. So we'll stop here, and if you have any questions.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And it deals with aspect. And I was looking at the information on page 60, where it's talking about identifying the apprehended and the apprehender. The blue, and looking at the color blue. The blue is apprehended, whereas the eye consciousness itself is the apprehender. And then furthermore, the eye consciousness apprehending blue sees the aspect of blue. And I'm unclear. I did a little other reading, but I'm still unclear as to exactly what aspect is. It seems in my mind, which obviously is inaccurate, it appears to be conceptual, which would be contrary to that of a direct perceiver. So what is aspect? And it would seem to me in that example, if it is a mental thought of the quality of the are you following where I am, town? It's on page 60 at the top. If the aspect is the quality, then why is that not a conceptual subsequent cognizer induced by the aspect? Is the question clear? Okay.
이 먼저 인지도를 주는 비유도를 들래 넘버래들이셔. 문제 명시하기 넘버 한데디 차례셔라. 넘버래디 상관도 뭐는 저거는 넘버래듯이 넘버래지 컨디션 넘버래드 컨디션 고고레스. And number what was your last part of the question? Induces.
Well, aspect seems to me, and again, when you look at the definition of self-knowing direct perceiving.
Ale rangri.
That which is
Rangri ngusum.
conceptual, non-mistaken, and has the aspect
Okay.
of an apprehender.
Okay.
So in this passage, the apprehender is the eye consciousness.
Mm.
But what is the aspect?
Mhm.
And it, and I'm confusing it apparently for something that's conceptual.
Okay. I'm trying to find that in the Tibetan. Rangri ngusum derisha. Rangri ngusum. Rangri ngusum. Rangri ngusum code. Get the address. ngusum rangri ngusum che. The rangri tingwa da gen mi wang mi gen se na ma yan de so zi wang chen yi.
그긴 진남라라.
rangri ngusum dal namba la isto. 진 염수녀랑 링에서도 수녀도 교와 되고 또 나 같이 되게 좀 말해.
라리곤 숨제대로 가지고 알라 멜롱이 벌써 보죠. 멜롱도 좀 아주르니 되게 얘기 지어라.
링에 숨기 나로라 넘버 슬라이스도 넘버들로. 링이 이게 거기 클래스 교. 너 성성한 게 지금. I'm trying to find that in my Tibetan because it is way back, right? Page 60.
Yeah, it's back in the direct perceiver. Under when it's talking about a self-knowing direct perceiver.
Yeah, I found it in English, but I couldn't find it.
진남 라리기 친이지. 또바다 다시 맞추는 진남 라리곤 숨기 친이지. 얘네들이 베트만 제시는
똑바다 대신 뭐 주에 진남랑 링에 숨기 생이. 똑바다 대신 뭐 주에 진남 짐베 넘버라 쇼라. 어디 짐베 넘버라 이들셔. 짐베 넘버라 이들 짐베 넘버라 이들라.
진남제고 지단 넘버 제죠로. 지 넘버 제죠라. 율이 니루만 란신 가임바데 로라 차라바데 넘버래. 그냥 아주 문제미시 저러지나 문제미시라 원보 통용 문제미시 원보 통용되라. 즉 나외나라 몰람람 저지여로. 차례돼. 어때 그 문제미시기 넘버래. 단단히 진남 제도는 짐베 넘버 제도는 짐베 넘버 제한테 가르쳐 거잖아. 쉐바 라니기 라니 짐베 넘버 제거. 그 멜롱 베네 멜롱도 좀 아주르니 젠지 바이나. 라. 주르니 젠 멜롱 주르니 젠 지게 멜롱기 아니 주르지기 바치로기 유란 사토여긴. 주르지기 수 난기 소소 나랑주기 주년데 멜롱 나라 샤라여도 바데 텐도 버질을 빼자고 사리데. 멜롱이 벌써 버질에 사리데. 고가르잖아. 주르지기 치기 치로기 주년 멜롱는다 샤토여. 주르지기 마라주기 주 멜롱 쿠랑기 주년 멜롱는다 샤토여 되니지.
뭐 고마서 면은 가는 남주. 면은 남주 아주 면은 쉬고다 면은 들라고. 들라고 그래.
저거다 멜롱 주르니바.
소리냐 말하나?
주르니즈는 뜻마 칼로다. 베나
초니라고 잡다 주려고 그래.
초니 조르지레다. 근데 조르비잖아. 파존 수조 니가는 멜롱데가 차도 그러. surdo sensabeina
meloni
yongde
남주 멜론 당보 멜론来当就学过东北台学过的
저
老
동바사에
基本学过的老嘛了
아
基本学过的老嘛了
말해 동바사에 멜론
okay yeah the first aspect of an apprehender, the aspect the translation here one translation this is, by the way, there's a different translation for the same word in English. In here, aspect refers to also sometimes nature of the thing. So when I consciousness apprehending blue color, looking at the blue color, the bluish color that you have in your mind, ngombo ta ngombe ngunzi mixie ngombo hama sharo la kharel sharo la lo la sharo la ko
다 가족이 미기는 지 몰람베기 나와 지운 거라 몰람람
ngol mi la sharo de la wore mi la sharo la mi shebal sharo
다 미코랑 시바 말아
chesa on
mi kona sheba
wa
mara.
sharo gore lo
다 미기 되게 원보디 통거라
동거라
미기 원보디 통해야 돼 미기 지거라 원보 통하다 지 몰람람베기 남바 지어라
남발라 나 ngombe ga yo
원보기 원보기 zor다지 이어라 원보지도 당가서 미기 도 사인도라 몰람람 되게 나와서 비지다 지 원보가라 샤르고
왕볼 sharo gore
왕보라 샤르고 그 된디기 샤레디 땅 원보기 남바데
I was trying to be more
멜롱 라자바이나 멜롱 데 페나 가도 멜롱 두년 사이에 멜롱 지어라 두년 사이에 멜롱 가도 도 말타바이나 아니 가도 칠로라 요르데 멜롱이 나로라 여비서도 나와지 차기도 어떤 멜롱 데 서부터 라디 레피자 거스
the melon that kin thang ngö ni bala sta ding ha ya ha ma skis la khan la gon te shi
멜롱 원이 버스도 zur 저 그 초니니 사이에 되긴 지가래전에 칠로기 멜롱기 칠로기 주년데 멜롱가 차르고 와 다 가서 주년은 멜롱나 차드라 멜롱 코랑 나로네 가서 그 주년 차르기 나와 저지 맞을래 때 용도 맞아 멜롱나 살아 맞아 멜롱 때 되라 맞아 그 주년데 멜롱에 나로래 예빈나 나봐서 저지 통도 멜롱에 나로네 멜롱에 야블로네 저지
제다 하고 있으면 오는 뭐 ngö ni bala shoro
어쨌든 진남제들 라리 제데 때 뭐니지더라 그 파조도 수조 니가 통해야 되겠니 봐. 누르니도 뭐니도 롱이 조닌 통해야 되겠어. 또변한 가족이 하나 셀기 두스마 디 주르두스마 뚜브샤는 소라. 디 주르니 두스타베는 디 주르다다는 타베나 파조데 동거를 수제도 동거라. 뭐니지도 디스고. 주르니도 주르 여기인지 타바이나 주르메바디 디니 타베는 조지모도 통두고 말아. 그는 눈데마도
self-knowing drug perceiver. Kish was explaining about self-knowing and self-knowing using an example of mirror. Mirror having he was saying two edges or two kind of apart, and at the end he was referring to the corner of the mirror. When you look from the edge of the mirror, you can see both kind of side of the mirror at the same time. And also he was using an example of looking into the mirror. When you look into the mirror, you can see your image in the mirror, and as if you are inside the mirror, but actually you are not. So self-knowing. So he was explaining the self-knowing part here. Self-knowing is like looking into the mirror.
치 율기 남바 콜라 셰발라 차례요 근 셰바 코랑게 남바 코랑게 된도 차례요 되면서 그 멜롱을 빼죠.
So in this here aspect of apprehender, meaning if you use the example of mirror, mirror can have a reflection of what is outside, as well as mirror can reflect or kind of able to see what is within the mirror. So it is able to see kind of, apprehension of, self, as well as apprehension of the external thing as well. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but feel free to, feel free to ask. I can say which one was supposed to. Feel free to ask again.
That I understand.
Mhm.
The question, I guess, really relates more to aspect, which seems to me to be a conceptual determination.
Mm.
If you
Talk about those
look
that
at
more or less, no?
the aspect of blue, for
Mhm.
example, in this passage,
Mhm.
why is that?
Self-knower or
Yeah, why is identification of the aspect not conceptual, I guess?
the one more to number sure the number the dab more than the inject the
number se
문제 미시기 공부 통해디 number the any 똑바 가진 말에 똑바 연구로 도서
toba 가르치는 말에 잡아이나 무슨 미식이 몸부터 해야 돼? 그 율고는 눈을 여는 두스마 통구여로. 그 미식 그런 게 율고라 미긴 눈을 매바이나 몸부터 해요 말이.
so blue
찍대로.
이 갑자기 들어왔어요. Blue eye consciousness apprehending a blue color, in that case, blue color is right in front of the eye. So it's directly perceiving by your eye, so therefore it is not a conceptual. It's a direct perceiver. Okay, Shimba?
찍으러. 다 율고랑 눈을 여기 다 무슨 미식이 몸부터 통용되라. 몸부터 통용되라다. 네 몸부 냠베 람상 디 몸부 통하다 냠도 땅 지금 몸부 레 삼베다 제가 샘나랑 예바다네 지요로. 되게 고 도바 차고 말이지. 되게 가르잖아. 고 가르잖아. 도바 자리 가르잖아. 대지 야마나 던지 딘디지라 유고요레스.
So
대지의 던지 먼저 미치기 몸부 태가를 통하들라. 그 대지의 던지 가야 유고 말이. 도바 그런 게 도베 ngo즈거라. 도베 ngo들라 가르자고 그러잖아. 다든 데론도 비전이 대지의 던지 니보데 던 penen 던지 지어라 도백이 던지 되는 게 아주 던지 로라 차야지 아주 제 가서 세로와 던지도 던이 막 건도 만진 던지다 던이라니 배 개발매야도 진기어 도바되게 진비 저와도 지고 던지다 던이가 찍바 임베게 이만
제네로 제제당로 제네
이거 제니 이거 제니도 던지 거랑 던도 인간 임바 툴도 와르스 인상 도발 콘 던지 던도 도바이나 그 던지 던도 출라지고
additional to that, when eye consciousness apprehending a blue color, blue in front of that, eye consciousness, the perception is kind of straight, direct. There is nothing in between. Eye is looking directly at the blue color, and when that happens, you have an apprehension in your thought that I have seen a blue color, and that apprehension is induced directly by a direct perceiver. There's nothing in between. When you talk about conceptuality, usually the meaning of the conceptuality is apprehension that is induces either by a kind of combination or mixing of sound and meaning generality. So in conceptual thought, there is a kind of mixing of mixing, or we can say mistaken distortion of you considered meaning generality that you have in your image as an actual thing, which is not, and that is that is what is the meaning or the definition of the conceptuality or conceptual.
다치 가려잖아. 또 배나 원봉 무슨 되지 그 또바 당고래. 또바 당고 거래. 대 되지 그 유림 거래. 람상 율 무슨 디 눈라 요 요즘에 가둘라 율 강해 봐대. 또베기 당도가 말해. 또베 당도 그거랑 무슨 그런 게 타가른 것이 당고 당이도라 또바라 또바 희야기 고갑이요 말해. 또바 희야 고요 말해. 다 또바 가두기 거래잖아. 율 눈라 매베 가둘라. 라 나 ngompo zo de bjena tambo nga zo ngompo thong ngompo di ngompo de ngompo sa de tin ji to zambe ngi mi shi ke ne chi zu da ngompo mebe ne sa jo de ji la ngompo ki ne thwa mebe sa jo de ji la ta ta 당기 기 ngompo ki thonchi da ji da thonchi to ga ndo ma cha re ne ane ti ngompo re nya be ta hiya de ta to ba de 오 왕부 대 원본진비 미시기 담비기 다 원본진비 또 받쳐야
The other thing is here, the timing. When sense direct perceiver perceives a thing, it does so quickly that there is no time for the conceptual, conceptuality arises. The concept, same moment in a sense. When I is looking at the blue color, this is blue in your thought happens so quickly that conceptual, has no sort of, opportunity to arises in between. Now, conceptual thoughts usually arises after, perceiving by sense direct perceiver. Say, much later, then you have a thought, oh, I have seen a blue color. And then that blue color, you have thought that I have seen that blue color comes from, either meaning generality or sound generality that has happened long before. You are not in front of the object itself. So that is a conception. So that's a mode of usually how conceptuality arises. There's a distance from the object that is perceiving. And the object that perceived directly is usually perceived by sense direct perceiver.
So aspect is so closely tied to the nature of what you're seeing that it's non-conceptual.
Number the ngodi tikaleji der inji naroli tanda aspect la choro the pyudol so you number the ngoni gal jurshar the mo yewa chor number the ngodi number the hakos no ngodi shi tujunyam do jil la gore da shi tujur
다 남바당 오자더니 율 강가로라 고니 직바 차고 말. 율 가절라 남바당 거기 남바당 대 오자니 도시 가가 자야 되는 연구는 자유
직바 yores.
직바 인간 요래.
So
어머 무슨지 율 되돌아 나 다 원불라 찾아봐야나 우즈미 시기 원벽의 남바당 원벽 오니 집어차대 우즈미 시기 율도게 원벽의 남바자당 원벽 오자니 원벽 란신자 대도가 집어차대
the one thing that I was explaining, Geshe, is there's a two word in Tibetan, but in English you find the same word, one word for both of these two. So the other word that you use is nature. Nature is also used in this aspect. Sometimes these two are. So I was explaining. So the answer is yes. It could happen at the same moment. If you use again same example, eye consciousness looking, apprehending a blue color. At that moment, the blueness is the both, aspect as well as the nature that is, apprehended by eye consciousness at that moment, apprehending a blue color. If that makes sense.
It helps.
Doc, you have a question?
On page 75, where it talks about inferential cognizers, and it says inferential cognizer is a determinative knower, which depending on its basis, a correct sign is incontrovertible. So, can a sign be incorrect? Which means then the inference is
incorrect, right?
And I'm asking because I'm becoming confused by mixing sort of Western philosophy with this. So in Western philosophy, it's understood that all inference is based on information, and information can be reduced to its more basic information. But at some point, you can't reduce that information any further, and you cannot prove it. And so all inference, according to Western philosophy, is based on an assumption, at its most fundamental level, or a belief. And so it's understood in Western philosophy that all inference can be mistaken, because when it comes down to it, you can't prove the bases of the inference. And I wonder if that's
그런데 제박들 시랑 된 다양다라로 된 지단 비율들 세부 된 다양다란 체리도 그런 게 이제 다디 노디션나 가르치르서 다 노디든데나 다 노드나 에너지 제박하는 노드로 왔어. 대인들 다 그런 게 저거들시 대인들 저한테 저거들에 노조배나로 노조가는 주기 필로소피나 그런 라서 삼단데 지금 저기 제발을 좀더 제발을 다가로 쳐발을 어디 지도 좀 벌다 이제 시사시다 차샤사지로 샤그로 차샤사데 아니 그 까브리 노조들이 갈 차샤니 용시고레스 용초고르 용고레스 디즈만 탄다 델라 컨디스트 치그레스 이제 투와 당부들의 랑게데 다데 자 노르나 아니 제발 노조로 라데
다 디게 된 다양다지 된들 가래잖아. 담보 그 윤전 거서 지어라. 윤전데 윤전 양다 임바지 고르면도 윤전 타낭 차서나 대지바데 키기만. 윤전 타낭라더니 지바 양다지 키 예자인요. 그 가르서는 자위기 지 마지다 마서나 그 윤전라더니 키고요로 그 로카란데 윤전라더니 키벨 다 로지차로. 윤전 막이 그 댄사기 윤전데 윤전 양다 마임바지 타낭지 레소나 텔라템비 로데야 로 양다 차고면 로 타낭 차대요. 다 인도가 그 윤전 양다 임바데 간디스야 하고 그 거래잖아. 바로 윤전 거사기 간사되기 랑 못해봐야 내가 하고 셰드바 윤전 양다 임바 하고 그랑라 유에 차되긴지 다 윤전도 거니 젠지다 또수 두고라서 그 윤전도 거니 나는 담이다바 두두가라 담이다바 함모기 메고니 간사들라 담이다바 두비운도라 다 거기 두사 간사지요라 두사 간사되게 다 지미다 제바 임베 제바 김전도 지는 그거라 다 제바 김전 지는 거도라 제바 임바 그 하고 그래 얘네 제바다 미다바니 대화 여바데 그런 게 하고 그래 몰라 다 제바다 미다바니 대화 균이 매바이나 양된 데메지 김전도 거 바이나 또 김전 상황 자도 그래 다 자원이 그 김전데 제바코나 이 김전 거사 간사 되게 제바코나 다녀거나 마셔바이나 제바 김전 거야 거나요. 인도라 제바 셰딩이 다 제바 임바 셰딩이 제바다 미다바니 대화여 바데 군이 덴데벤 대화여 바데 하고 되니 디리질라다 다 제바라와 제바다 미다바니 대화 두가 del de doa cheba yin me da ba yin gu doa ta yumzen del la den tan damita bare damita ba yin yumzen gare zana kran da cheba yin ba kran ha gu doa keleng doa cheba damita ba yin doa ya ba den kran ha gu doa ta yin doa la ko mita ba yin gu res yumzen del
Um, translated as a correct sign, sign, or also a reason. It's a correct reason. The reason has to be depending on its basis. In the says here, the sign must be translated as a correct sign. It has to be correct or valid. And otherwise, as you said, there's no way that one can, induces inferential cognizer based on mistaken sign or reasoning. Mistaken sign or mistaken reason cannot lead to inferential cognition at all, because the basis is mistaken. And here inferential cognizer, the very basis, the foundation to which on which one can cultivate this cognition is the reason itself. So reason has to be valid and correct. In the translation here is the correct. And so in example, example, Geshe was using example of again, Buddhist syllogistic. If you want to, somebody to understand that sound is impermanent, the person that you are going to, convince that sound is impermanence, he has to have sort of prior sort of prerequisite of your reasoning. So, if you use the example that sound is impermanent because it is a functioning thing, that person that you're going to use this reasoning has to have an understanding what is a functioning thing. What is the connection between a functioning thing and impermanent? Once he has those kind of foundational understanding, then the logic that you use make a sense to that person. Sound is impermanence because it's a functional thing, and he can immediately make a connection between, yes, if it is a functioning, the functioning and impermanent thing, it has to be kind of logically. So if that person doesn't understand what is functioning thing, what is impermanence and their connection, then there's no kind of, it doesn't make sense. Your syllogism, it sounds impermanence because it's a functioning thing. He has no idea, and therefore that reasoning or syllogism doesn't, it's kind of, sort of useless, doesn't make sense. And so that person that you're going to use the reason has to have some kind of basis or understanding of, your syllogistic reasoning or sign.
to salo ro cha sai
In
to
terms-
tele to zo le la ru tang bai na nga to kar za bar ta pena di de che ta chu da ma ni lo chu da ma ni zo de bi ma na pena chu ze de kar ji zo ren len xin sha wei chu ge le za na chu mo za na de ro chu ze de la ta oma de chu je ma re oma chu yin bi gum za kar za na ko len xin sha wei ge cini go chu ge cini ge oma la chang de yo re yin bi gum za oma chu re ze go ta de ko nga zu ge lam sang du zu kap de ta na nga zu long wa char ka bu shi bo ro oma de chu ni pe ka ga ta zhuo ka ga re ze ndo ka ga re 다 주지종 가가 얘기를 임바이나 그 런싱 샤르와즈도 그 렌바즈는 그 가서 kambuyo kambu mezo gan redala lembala gora sherwazana ko kalorda tanda ngazuge yang tanya bebi tanya logar mo zawe lensing sharwazi dole yu sherzana yang kalorda ngazuge di pena sate zo gan la sherzi dole sato ma lemba chayi dole ta sala sherju zi do yang ko lemba cha do ti chawate re yu.
Oh, ini sudah.
다 드니지기 돈에 다 오마데 마다 추니 지바레 오마코나 추 란신전 레 고사 대지어라 하고 해지어라 다 렘바인 비금전라 때네 오마데 추임바 두베데 두베이나 오마 렘바데로 코나 오마 렘바데요레 다 렘바다 추니게 ndewade akode yinjila ta oma cheje chuinde
년시에 왼배
lenji shawa imbe chese ta ko baina ta ta do imje
그게 된다고 하는데 김제적으로 나 엄마처럼 된다 가려고 그러게 저는 된다 고서 맞아. 이따 가르친 거.
ta garje gordana pajo ganza de oma da chuni yo misinye kebar je misigen oma chu rezana ngazoge lo bagimara oma chu rezana 어디 간사들라 다 오마 추레 추임이 김전 가래잖아 럼바 렌도 가스 김전 거는 오마 추임바 하고 레라로 셔도 까자이
그거 좀 그거 저거들 가르쳐 돼.
아
Geshe was using another example. So I was asking what's the connection of that to your question. So but
저거는 대화요 저거는 대화요 가르잖아 다 디저로 그 저거도 가르잖아 다데 다 다는 이거 샤베나 다 될때 비지바데 지바 양다지 기기를 말해서 들어
So Geshe said there's a connection. Your connection was if I guess he was proving if you give a wrong sign or wrong reasoning, then inferential whatever needs to prove in has to also becomes mistaken. So that wasn't and the example that he was giving was again kind of he was giving more he was saying it's more simple example, and he asked me whether it's more simpler or more complicated. So somebody that doesn't know how to differentiate between milk and water, and if you try to use a reasoning, when we use the for water, we have a kind of this concrete definition, wet or ability of soaking, and then flowy. There's a definition meaning of the water, and same characteristics can apply to milk. So you can use this reasoning. Milk is water because it can wet, opposite of dryness, and it is also flowy. And that person, without knowing, actually he will accept it, because you're using that reasoning, and he thinks that then milk is water. So the point here Geshe was saying is that if the sign or reasoning is wrong, then inferential would be wrong too.
So in that case, we would not call that an inferential.
단단 딜pe Geshe 딜pe 교들 빼들 거는 제발 랑 말아서 제발 좀 하게 하려 그런 건지 제일해서 단단 딜pe 들잖아. 그러시는 거 추다디 오마 하모가 줘라잖아. 그러네.
다 지바지 해야지라 지바 해야지 버지야 당게 코드로야기 리바미다 차데모도
So in this case, Geshe was saying, the mode of inducing inferential cognition is the same, although we are using a different reasoning here to somebody that doesn't know how to differentiate.
나도 자체제 미다데 지바 미지도 나도 기니 밀람라 통야 매베기 가자지 레디오로 다 주당 엄마잖아 나도기 엄봉모스미 롱제야여 되겐 통야여 되겐 레야여 되겐 다네진 코 사간보지간라 추슈베나 렘바차직바요레 사간보지로 오마슈베나 렘바차기요 그 다제 제바이나 도스마 하고 해줘야 되라 되게다 베 마소나 디거베네 또도 레라 그러비 차기요 나 진짜 미다디 나 미다바레 미다베 제바레잖아 제바거랑 유연리 해봐서 저래서 거 미다바잖아 그지그지를 집어져서 거 아주게 다 엄봉모스미 다그 율도 레요 말아 남산 차례 지 롱어 삼로다니지 기하게 제바제야다 롱어 삼로다니다 제바디 기바이나 윤자다다 윤전 찍불렀더니 기하게 로지 차례라 근데 주도 어머니 빼 고두스만 lempa bi gimzan la tene oma di chui ma dus ma duba yana ngo soso ge la be gi ta ngo su ko la jeba chene ko ta je chene dus ma tenba yana ko ten yu ye de ba chi jeba ke la chi ba chi ya
땡겨 해보는 주도 뭐 카가를 땡고
ah
땡겨 가르 땡겨라고 주도 엄마한테 땡겨라나
penaro oma di chui ma ta du ko ra pa jo de la ko da te ko ra oma chui ma ka gimzan ka re sana lempa rin du ga lempa chaya yo ba de chui 제리 re chui ran xin re chui chingi de ro
네
다 제가 사감부지가라 오마루나 지바레 사감부지를 출루나 콜럼바 자기여 봐 지바 아주 사예요 통해요 얘들아
um um using a second example of water and milk he was saying his assumption was that water and milk is more easier to understand in example instead of sound being impermanent. When we talk about sound being impermanent because it is a functional thing, because it is a composite thing, we are talking about something that cannot be sort of apprehended or understood through our sensory organs, and while water and milk, if we literally bring water and milk together, both does the same thing of getting soaked and flowy. So he thinks that example is more easier to understand.
이게 또 지바 히야 요 지바지야레 지바 히야라 레라요 지 거러거든 엄청 무슨 뜻이 자와지네 고 김전 때에 당 통해요 여도 차거로 이게 대 지바 인가 지바지야로 고 런지 사회기 김전라 때네 엄마디 추임바도 배 지바지
그래도 거기 지워들 내 간다 써버리네. 그 지워들 내 간다 써버리.
그 지워들 내 가르잖아 고 윤전 디스거라 윤전 스타나지 고 소매나 티 지바디 히기레 베세 테로
So
윤전 스타나지 고베나 윤전 베나 오마 추임바 윤전도 고비알라 오마 추임베 임바 두비알라 윤전데 런지 샤와 마고바 제네로 셴바지 런지 샤와 마인게네 감부르 소르지 사당 돌아서 받는데 윤전 거도베나 고 되게 좁돼요 다는 다 미다바 임비 금전라 제바 막고 받지네 다는 진 다바른다 지야요 말에 미다바레 미다베 군 지야자는 요 말에 디리에 다가레 산이 다가레 나니 다가레 달레 뉴라요 말에 지금 전거베나 티 금전이 히야요 뭐 텔레 템베기 제바지요로 제바디 히야요 말에 양다베지
I'm asking questions on behalf of you. I was saying then how is that answer to your question? So he was saying that both, the two examples that he said earlier, sound being impermanent, reasoning, functioning thing, and water, milk being water. In both cases, using that reasoning can induce this inferential cognition. There's no differences. But the point here is that, you cannot come to the inferential cognition by using a wrong basis or wrong sign. And in case of proving sound being impermanent, using a reason being sort of sound is by nature cannot be disintegrated, cannot be changing. If you use that reasoning, you can never come to the conclusion of conviction that sound is impermanent. You cannot prove that because the reason is the wrong. Same way the reasoning of proving milk as same as water. If you use some kind of opposite of flowy and wet or soaked, if you use something because of quality of dryness, you cannot come to the conclusion at all.
So I believe based on the answers. A sign can be correct, but there are also signs that are incorrect.
다 괴셔로 예전에 다 디나 다 양다는 뒤도 되고는 저 렌세 버리셔 섬고도 그런 라이션 다 제박 디나 랑게 다 양다 땐는 저도 땐디 다 양다 딘지미 다의 양다 인구 요르벨도 저들 大的农具用
这个有
大的农具用这个的是农具用这个样这个用这个嘛这个用是你要用错了的他结巴了
哦结巴了大能了等你结巴起来要么的
So the short answer is that sign or reasoning has to be correct, not mistaken in inferential cognition. So yeah, that's a short answer. So the reasoning that is facsimile or that sounds like correct but not, such reasoning will never able to kind of come to the or induces inferential cognition. Has to be correct or not mistaken.
So for defining it, I mean I want to check and make
Sure.
So it's you can say you can start with an incorrect sign and an inference, but that is not
inferential cognition. 解报了用下来了，解报来了，眼了呢，大的什么弄出去个，俺学过里弄出的 dictionary，俺解报什么也有了都。
我们弄出去个子呢，他本来结巴怎么可能马起边俺绕到路忙不起他语言不高的。本来他没打本中间看啥了，是不是恰恰白呢？他用真得了的那个，他没打本都用到了，朗上他没打本都怎么过了，怕就都是看啥的了，他没打本都被结巴起过了，怎么起过嘛的？他中间看啥的给他。大观念就了，大观念干啥的个，他没得把这些都，没得把伊们在结巴过一都，对，当他结巴的人也好，俺都不行了，但俺他结巴伊把哈过呀，结巴的没得把电话也把的哈过去呢，他叫人给他们给，俺人他没得把这，没得把伊们在干的结巴人多啊，伊们在干嘛呢？朗上结巴的几个嘛的，他家里几个人，当不俺了家里几个人，他打把伊呢，没打把伊呢，我特种的当他也有的了，后来。这种一起过来，是吧？他这个不来真的，他打把人呢，没打把人呢，就你要钱么都别给他，打把没打把看了，要钱么都别这种一起给的，这其实，嘛的，当不过来这种，那打把人呢，没打把人呢，那拍下打把人啥的，那没打把人什么的，那拍下打把人啥的，人别个，对面给这种来的。对面真的给特种一起过来，他特种的也这样日本给都是嘛，用咱周围真的，那搞来了这特种的嘛多呢，那拍起大把人啥的人被特种的多呢，他大把人呐，没大把人呐，这边他参加没特种这个，是吧？这了参加没特种了，这特种的我有多，当个拍起大把人啥的人被个特种就了，这特种的干多。땡가니 다양 여와 제모도 다바이나 미다바이나 냐메 두즈마 찬냠지가 라데고 다양 저렇고 김전 두고 지네 다바이나 미다바이나 다 팔절 미다바 멘도 삼베기 다 던줄기 터좀라 땡데기 다 팔절 다바 미다바인 멘도 미다비 초라 다마 로기 슈도 마서나 미다바 초라 로슈 체르도 왔다 텔라 던줄기 터좀라 다 대지도 다 발전 미다바 인사를 했냐면 다 던줄기 특성 지수 다 남미다바 내빈 제바데 키고 남미다바 또 제바데
So here if you use the example of somebody that you are trying to convince that sound is impermanent to that person before having that sound is impermanent, inferential cognition, in his mind, there are many different stages of the we say cognition arises, and he has gone through many different stages. If you look more kind of closely and deeper. So as said earlier, that person, when you're trying to convince that sound is impermanent because of functioning thing. That person has to have some understanding of concept of impermanence, the concept of functioning thing, and then what is the relationship between functioning thing and impermanence. He has to have those understanding, and so here the sort of process is first he can have a start from this thought of suspicion. that probably sound might be a permanent entity. He can start from that thought, and then later, again, kind of thinking and analyzing, he can come to the level where he can have what's called kind of balanced thought. Sound might be permanent, it could be impermanent, and then later again, he analyzes more and more, and he can come to what's called meaningful doubt. Now he's more leaning towards the actual understanding. Sound probably might be impermanent, and so. At that moment, that 등교기 태종관에는 가르 제바 제만 갈렘be. 등교기 태종관 제바.
등교기 태종기 지수 다 제바 제만 되지.
So after
생활라 대점숨 두어.
So after that, then comes sort of beginning of the inferential cognition. So what we are seeing here is that before inferential cognition kind of arising, 3 stages of doubt he has been gone through those 3 stages of doubt.
Yeah.
Kowe shingam su pendan dewa malu jungwe ne chere zewa tenzin ya zoe shabe sede bardo tengyo che bawe jitara jemba dan kondo sambo deyan dejen de teta gungi jesu dalo Yewa deda tamje rabdu ngo tuzuma shabe yewa tamje ge ngo akano chodo nga ba denda ajin gewe zawa ne gunjang zambo jeje rabdu ngo ye chanjo semjo ripo je ma ye banam je jo je kewa nyamba me ba ya kone kondo bewa rajo konye bewa rimbo je ma ye banam je jo je kewa nyamba me ba ya kone kondo bewa rajo In the land encircled by snow white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows nearby in generosity, density, Yaso, remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samandra Bhatta too, so now I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future placed education as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings to perfect good actions. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. May the supreme jewel be emptiness that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more.
Thank you.